And welcome back to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono.
And I'm your host, Chris.
And we are here to bring you the full weekend slates, starts, sits, and sleepers preview for all the matchups of these week's games. Let's jump into it. All right, let's jump into it. So first game on the slate for us to talk about here are the Steelers versus the Browns. You notice we have a start next to Kenny Pickett, and most of you are going to think about why. The guy's thrown one touchdown pass in the past 4 weeks. He doesn't complete a ton of his passes. I think this offense finds ways to get the job done, and I think Kenny Pickett is growing better as a quarterback. We have him as a cautionary start, is a streaming option if you have a quarterback on bye. There probably are some better options out there, but to me, I think if we're going to say start Deontay Johnson and Jalen Warren, who are going to be big out the backfield, I think we definitely have to say that Kenny Pickett is going to continue to grow on these games. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets back on the touchdown train this week in the divisional game. So we have sit for Najee Harris, start for Jalen Warren. Elaborate that on a little bit more. What do you like about Warren over Najee? Because they're getting the same amount of snaps.
I mean, it's simple. It's the explosive plays. And, the Warren's been able to break tackles. He's been able to have explosive plays, not only in the passing game, but in the rushing game too. So if you're starting to lose a lot of the passing work if Najee's losing the passing work to Warren, and now he's losing the big playability, which we've just never seen from Najee, not even in college. He's not a big play guy. We're getting that from Warren, and that's what this offense revolves around, right? There's a lot of 3 and outs, and I think they have a really tough hill to climb this weekend with the Cleveland Browns defense, who just lost their quarterback, who knows they have to play lights out in order for them to win this game in a tough divisional game to keep pace with the Baltimore Ravens. So I expect a huge game from the defensive side of the ball from the Baltimore Ravens or from the Cleveland Browns. And if I expect that, then Kenny Pickett, the big players are going to have to temper expectations for the Steelers.
Yeah, and in my opinion, I think this is a game where if the Steelers are going to win it, Kenny Pickett's going to have to step up, and he's going to have to make some plays, and Deontay Johnson's going to have to make some plays, and we'll see if Pat Freiermuth is cleared to play as of 5:50 on Friday night. He is yet to get the clearance and be removed from IR. His window is open and can be at any point, but has not yet. So they have till, I think, 4 o'clock on Saturday. So about the afternoon time, you may be watching this at that point and already know. So keep an eye on that. We're not starting any of the other offensive players. I'm happy to downgrade Kenny Pickett to a sit, as I have been pretty much each week. I thought last week was going to be a bounce back for him. It ended up not being. But Chris is right. This is going to be a heavy defensive game here. Should be a lot of fun. Let's move over to the Browns. You got Dorian Thompson-Robinson. That's going to be the starter. They've already named DTR the starter here. We are not saying start him. You don't want to start Elijah Moore. Njoku we have as a sit because Pittsburgh's pretty darn good against the tight end position, and we said it's going to be a defensive thing. But where the Browns make their money right now, and especially behind the young quarterback, is going to be at the running game. We're going to start Hunt. We're going to start Ford. We have Amari Cooper as a caution. So let me hear your thoughts on Amari Cooper with DTR.
Well, in the first game with DTR that we saw, he was really inefficient passing the ball. And I got to see it. And there's got to be better options. Like a lot of the big guys are back from bye this week, and you're probably losing Drake London. You're not really losing anyone from the Patriots, and then Michael Pittman, right? So there's really only 2 receivers that we're losing from bye week this week. So there's got to be better options than Amari Cooper out there for you to say, let me just wait a week and see what this is. Listen, go and play him. If you're a winning team and you can afford to take some hits in your lineup, sure, go and play him. But there's a lot of people that are watching this that are ended up being in the middle of the pack, and you need a win this week. And if you need a win this week, I would highly recommend sitting Amari Cooper, because he could go off, but I don't see him going off for 120 and 2 touchdowns. Yep. If he's going off, it's going to be maybe an 80 and a touchdown. And the flip side of that is he can absolutely do nothing. He can get 20 yards.
Yeah, he had one catch for 16 yards. I think the last time they were together in that
Yeah, and
game
so
against Baltimore.
even though this defense has been pretty light against the pass with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know what we're expecting from the second career start of a player that wasn't very highly touted coming out of college in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, you're like we said, play both the defenses in this matchup. It's going to be a grueling head-to-head, good football match. When these two, this whole division is good at playing in the
They're
trenches
all over
football.
500.
Yeah, well, and
Well,
just in general,
not
in the trenches football, well,
not
not
the
the
Bengals.
Bengals.
They're
But the
500
Bengals
though.
show promise. I mean, like it sucks that they lost their quarterback for the season. Browning wasn't terrible to close out that game. He did have that touchdown. I think coaching and everything like that, it could be interesting. They could still make the playoffs because there's so many bad teams out there too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's move on to the Cardinals and Texans, two teams that, well, one's bad and one is actually not bad. But the Cardinals, taking the turn for the better with getting Kyler Murray back. You're going to start him this week. You're going to start Connor this week. You're going to start Brown and McBride, your big weapons. It's still jury's out on these other ancillary pieces of this offense. Rondell Moore had a ton of targets. Michael Wilson had some targets his way. Who's your favorite offensive weapon from the Cardinals if you had to pick one that you were starting this week that's going to really take the crown?
Well, I think it's like obviously Kyler Murray is the easy answer, but let me give you one outside of Kyler Murray. It's going to be James Conner. I think his second week back, they really limited what he was going to do last week, and I think that Rondell Moore was a beneficiary of that last week. We saw a lot of touches out of the backfield, saw a lot of runs out of the backfield, and just extended runs, which is just a swing pass out of the backfield to get him the ball into some space.
Mm-hmm.
I think Connor is going to come back fully healthy this week. After missing 4 weeks from knee injury. And so I expect him to have a big week against, middle of the pack Texans rush defense. I think the Texans have been good and they got some reinforcements back on their defensive backside. So I expect, maybe Hollywood Brown and some of the other receivers to be held in check. Trey McBride was the big shocker last week, and I expect him to have a decent game. He's a great, at this point, he's a great rest of season starter at the tight end position. But it's not a terribly great matchup for him against the Texans. They've been surprisingly good against tight ends.
No, Texans actually, I thought the Texans have been pretty terrible against tight ends. The last I looked at it, that's been their one Achilles heel.
No.
McBride.
Let's go and double check this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a juicy matchup for him. I think Houston's one of the worst. So I like McBride this week a lot, actually.
Well, just on the volume of targets alone, I think he's worth playing. And so even if he wasn't, what I was going to say is even in a bad matchup, I would still end up playing him. Just based on that alone.
Yeah, they're like third worst in terms of fantasy points against the tight end position. I think I like him in this position. Either way, he's going to get volume. Hollywood Brown gets volume. Rondell Moore is a sneaky one to me, and I picked him up in our league just after watching what he did the previous week. I may even grabbed him before his first outing with Kyler Murray, but what he was able to do in terms of targets, I think he had about 8 targets. Like Chris said, he got passed out the backfield. You've known him to get some runs here and there too as well. I'm just interested to see how the Cardinals evolve as an offense, if they're going to keep it that way, or if they're going to go back to making James Conner kind of the lead of out the backfield pass work and running between the tackles and everything like that. It's, we'll see what happens here in this game, because I think this is an opportunity for them to really show off some of their weapons against the Texans defense that is a little bit weaker against the run. Like Chris said, they're susceptible because they've been pretty strong against the pass. So
I would expect them to go back to what they were like last year when Kyler Murray was healthy.
You think so?
Connor was great when he was healthy because he was more involved in the passing game. The offense.
I would expect that, but the other part of me too is saying it's like, well, Connor's already been hurt. Connor's an aging back. Like, why not get him to an opportunity where we use him like a running back, and then we have this other, sort of X-type player that we can use out the backfield. It's got speed. We've had success doing it. Kyler Murray, it takes a little bit off of him having to run around on the outside, even though he did plenty of that last week. I think they're just trying to see what they have for the future in this offense, and they're going to let all these guys play and get opportunities. Because what do they have to lose? They've already lost plenty of football games at this point. So, and the jury's out. Jury's not out yet on whether they're going to even keep Kyler Murray next year. I mean, I would think they would, but if they would, why are you even playing the guy this season? So it's going to be interesting to see. There's some quarterbacks like him and Justin Fields that could be on different teams next year, and they're kind of, playing for their future a little bit. So,
I mean, I think he's going to be a Arizona Cardinal.
I do too. I'm not throwing speculation out there. I'm just saying there's you never know in this league right now. Let's move on to the Texans. Let's talk about a quarterback that will be on the Texans next year, and that's C.J. Stroud and the way he's playing football. He's playing MVP caliber football. He's playing Rookie of the Year caliber football. I expect it to be the same here against the Cardinals. Nico Collins has no designation, is a full go here. Brown was ruled out, so he is not even on our list here as a start. So moving forward, we have Singletary as a start with Dameon Pierce ruled out too as well, a third week in a row. It was a cautionary start, and cautionary for me was because Pierce was supposed to possibly come back. He was at practice today. I would remove the caution from him and have him be a full go against the Cardinals this week. I don't know if you agree with me there.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I said caution, I had a caution on Singletary, is the fact that Dameon Pierce was looking like he was trending towards returning to practice. He did return to practice yesterday, and then or today, and then they came out a couple minutes ago and ruled him out for Sunday. So, yeah, I would remove the caution against him. Although, listen, the Cardinals
aren't that bad.
They're not one of the worst, and if you're going to beat them, you're going to beat them in the secondary and passing on them. So I do like C.J. Stroud. I like this offense for both these teams, but I like the bigger players in this. So Singletary, yeah, I mean, he had a great week last week, but that game last week, they looked really good. They looked like they were clicking on every cylinder. So maybe they get back into that form and they keep feeding him. Maybe they keep passing the ball just a ton. But I would start him. I think that there are, like, let me ask you, of the replacement guys this week, do you like him or Ty Chandler?
Oh, I like Singletary because I just like this offense. I mean,
over Chandler?
Yeah, I mean, Denver Broncos defense too has been a little bit more stout as of recent, causing, I mean, yeah, look at what James Cook did, but you're talking about how many running backs get that first big replacement start, and I don't think they even ruled out. Did they rule out Madison all the way either? He was limited in practices, so
no, but he hasn't cleared concussion yet.
Yeah, so I don't know. I still like Singletary. I mean, here's the thing about Singletary. I will keep the caution on him. He's done it one time. And you look at the rest of the games between him and Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce definitely showed flashes of what he could be. But this offense hasn't been able to run the ball that well. And it wasn't like something clicked last week, and it could have just been bad defensive planning on their opponent's part. But I don't know what it was that allowed him to get some of these big chunk yards out of it. Like, we know that there's chances for that. But he can go right back into the rhythm that the Houston Texans had with the running game, and that was 2 to 3 yards per carry at best.
Yeah.
Easily. And they can lean on C.J. Stroud in the passing. And I think they win ball games still doing that. They've shown they don't need to run the ball to win. And I think Singletary getting all those carries was a product of where they were in the game script and everything like that. I think it changes in this game. I think Arizona makes it a little bit of a game because their offense isn't terrible now with all the weapons back either. So Nico Collins and Tank Dell, you got to like them. Like we said, Brown was ruled out. So those are the only two that I feel comfortable doing. And then Schultz against the Cardinals. The Cardinals actually been pretty good against the tight end position. And Schultz has not been that big touchdown playmaker that he was for the Cowboys. He's had one big game that's done that. And I don't know if that was the end of the road for that, since he's got bigger wide receiver pieces to throw to.
Yeah. Although with Noah Brown being ruled out, like he is a decent enough play.
Oh yeah,
Where
I mean I'm
where
still
like if
streaming them.
you, yeah,
I agree. I'm still streaming them. There's so many. There's not a the group of tight ends that are actually pretty decent. So we used to call it the tight end drop off, right? Well, that drop off used to be a big gap. I feel like that drop off has now moved from big gap to smaller gap, but those same guys are all still huddled around each other right there. Your
yeah.
Njokus, your Schultzes, and I think people like McBride are starting to shine at the top of that group, if not above it. You've got your Laportas and your Kincaids that are above it.
Can we stop talking about Njoku this year? Maybe Njoku last year, but Njoku this year has not been good enough. He's had one double-digit week,
Okay.
so I wouldn't put him in that grouping.
Well, he's in that big group of players down below. I'm saying all those other guys are above that group now. There's more people.
Yeah,
There's a separation.
I mean, I would disagree with you a little bit on that. I think that there's just more of that tight. Like there's Travis Kelce, but even Travis Kelce has been pedestrian this year in a lot of games. Andrew's now out for the season, so let's throw him out of the conversation. Hawkinson, Kittle, but then those are the same guys
we've all talked about.
Yeah, but there's still like a big group of guys that now have come up too. We're talking about the like Laportas.
That's what I was. I don't think you were paying attention to what I was saying. I'm saying Laporta, Kincaid, McBride. There's these guys that are now like rising up above, closer to that front of the group. But there's still a big pack of other tight ends that I think Dalton Schultz is included in that are doing a little bit better or are moving up. That there's not such big drop off because those top guys aren't doing like amazing as they always were. I think there's still a separation, and Schultz is a part of that group. Schultz is in the Freiermuth. He's in the Njoku. He's in that group of.
I think he's better than Njoku. That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying a group. You can rank them however the hell you want, but I'm just saying he's in that group. He's not up there with the Hawkinsons, McBrides, Laportas, Kincaids. To me, I think he had one big game that people are going to ride on. So
yeah.
Let's move on to the Titans and Jag. That's a divisional game here, an opportunity for. To me, Trevor Lawrence to, get off his slump here and back in it. But I don't know. The Titans seem to find ways to win ball games too. They're just kind of like the Steelers, and I like it. Don't like Will Levis like I did last week. That what a bad turnout that was. Yeah,
told you.
Just my prop bets kind of faltered there, but we are still starting.
You heard it here.
We are still starting Derrick Henry. However, to me, I would put a caution next to Derrick Henry after his output last week was so minimal. He's facing another pretty good defense against the rush. I like Hopkins a lot here. You can argue that, somebody else is going to have to pass, catch the ball. Treylon Burks is probably going to be out again. He hasn't cleared concussion protocol. His counterparts there, Phillips may have been the only other one that was worthy of I think Chris talked about him in the waiver episode, worthy of kind of a stream flex play. Chig has been nothing but a bust all season at that tight end position. However, he is getting targeted too. So as you can see, there's two greens here. Henry and Hopkins are the only two people comfortable to put in your lineup. And I'm not calling them lineup locks. I'm calling them like a wide receiver 2/3 and a running back 2 against this Jaguars defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you there.
I mean, what do you think this offense needs? Do you think it's Will Levis that needs to kind of go back to his 4-touchdown game for this offense to be worth something, especially Henry in that? Or do you think it's something else? Do you think the wheels have fallen off here?
4-touchdown game, he had, 2 busted coverages for D-Hop on long, big plays. Can he throw the deep ball? Yeah, but all right, fine. The teams weren't ready for it. Now we know you can throw the deep ball. So we're going to shut down D-Hop. And what they need to do is start feeding Derrick Henry. This offensive line needs to get put their hand in the dirt, and they need to just beat the guy in front of them and run the football down someone's throat. And then make the game easier for Will Levis. And that's what it's about. Go and take your shots when you can. You're going to throw a 3-week starter, 4-week starter out there and drop back 40 times when you have Derrick Henry in the backfield and you're going to give him 11 rushes. That's crazy to me. That's not winning.
I agree.
That's not winning football, and that's not smart football. And if that was your plan, then at the deadline, you should have gotten what you can out of Derrick Henry and let him walk.
Well,
But
to me, the problem wasn't 11 carries. It was the fact that he was getting 2.1 yards total per carry on the game.
yeah,
Like
but, yeah, but
they were shoving it to him and trying to make this guy pass, and they succeeded. I mean, like Tampa Bay
yeah,
did a
but they
good job
really
of trying
weren't.
to make him
Did you
pass.
watch some of these runs? Like they'd run it on first down, and there'd be miscommunication, or they'd like have him. They'd have Derrick Henry lined up like, or Will Levis lined up in shotgun, and Derrick Henry lined up next to him. Like, are
And
you
hand it
freaking
off.
kidding me?
Yeah, not under
Line
center.
Levis under center and hand the ball freaking off. Like, you're the quarterback for Derrick Henry, not the quarterback of the Titans. Like that's how this offense should be running.
I'm with you. I think this offense needs to run through Derrick Henry. It's the only way Levis is going to be successful, and that's what I was hoping they were going to. I knew it was going to be tough against Tampa on the ground. It's going to be tough against Jacksonville on the ground, but if they're going to have a chance to win, it's going to be that way.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, and listen, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, a lot of people have them on fraud alert. They looked really bad last week against the Niners, and the Niners have stunk it up. I mean, they came off bye, but they had 3 straight losses before that.
Yep.
And so I don't know. I think that when the Jaguars play really good teams, or the Jaguars play teams that can shut them down, I think this might be another trap game for them. Like I'd like to see Trevor Lawrence bounce back. We still have him as a start, but I have a caution on ETN. Like again, ETN's had a really, really favorable matchups in the first half of the season. The rest of his season is rough. I mean, he goes through a gauntlet of teams where he plays, and from rushing defenses, I mean, I think he has Tennessee, Baltimore, Cleveland, and it's just like it's tough sledding ahead for him. Like these teams are going to shut the run down, and they're going to make Trevor Lawrence beat them. And outside of Christian Kirk in flashes, I mean, Calvin Ridley, you can go and argue that he's been a bust. They just aren't getting him the ball enough.
Well, I think it's not even that they can't get him the ball. We talked about it on this podcast multiple times. He has really, really struggled with press coverage, and I think there's still some games where he doesn't have press coverage and they struggle because it is a tough time for Lawrence getting him the ball. They have leaned on the run game a lot, but when you can't get open for him, and you have Zay Jones that's also out, you're leaning on 2 guys, Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk, which is why the 2 of them are getting fed. Now, Evan Ingram's output doesn't look like it did towards the end of last season when he was having some big games, 100-yard games here and there. But that's because there was no Calvin Ridley back then, too. So his route tree and his route running was completely different. But Christian Kirk is obviously the guy that is benefiting the most here. And we kind of knew it was going to be that way because he plays such a good slot receiver position. But Ridley not getting open is difficult. And that's why Zay Jones was seeing some touchdowns earlier on in the season in the red zone opportunities because he is getting open. He's not facing top coverage. He can beat press coverage because he's a pretty good route runner. Not that Calvin Ridley is. And listen, I think everybody also has to remember, Calvin Ridley's not a young wide receiver at all. I can't remember, is he 28? He's 28 now? 29 or something like that. He's an older receiver. Don't quote me on that. I don't have it off the top of my head. I just know he's an older guy. And so when you look at that too, everybody expected him to miss some time, come back, and just be this, be what he was for that big one season. Yeah, he's 28. And to me, it's a little bit different. I think if he was not used as the number 1 wide receiver here, and kind of like how Devonta Smith is over at the Eagles, I think he shines a little bit more. But if people are going to play press man on him, they're going to take him out of the ball game more times than not. And so the Titans are weaker against the pass. It's interesting to see what's going to happen here and how they treat this one. We caution ETN, we caution Lawrence because of those purposes, but you got to lock Kirk in because he's a safety valve and it works for Lawrence. And you got to lock Ingram in because the volume's there. He's a safety valve for Lawrence, especially when under pressure. And this Jags defense, I think, could stunt this Titans offense. Again, if they can stop Derrick Henry and make them throw, it's going to be interesting to see what Will Levis can do. They're going to challenge the rookie again, as you should if you're a defense against the Titans.
Yeah.
So here's another game that I'm excited to watch here, mostly because we get to watch the Dolphins offense back at full strength with Achane coming back here. I really don't care how much they slap around the Raiders. but I will say we're starting everybody on the Dolphins offense. We have Waddle as a caution, but we know that going in, and that's how he was last year. That's how he is this year. He's got that boom or bust capability. I mean, when you're catching a ball for 12 to 15 yards each reception you get, that's great. When you see 6 targets and 4 catches and you don't get the touchdown, your output looks low. I mean, it's plain and simple.
Well, that's kind of my point with him is like Tyreek Hill could easily go for 250 yards this game.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I can't wait to see, and we haven't seen it yet, and obviously we're hyper-targeting Tyreek Hill, but, you know, the difference between last year and this year with these two is I haven't seen Waddle, and maybe it's because he's just been getting banged up a lot, and they've changed up his routes a little bit more to be more possession receiver, it seems like. He reminds me more of his rookie season than how it was last year, his sophomore year. But we haven't seen that catch and go, you know, that catch and be gone type of reception over the middle, like we saw from Odell last night in a Thursday night game, what Odell Beckham's bread and butter was as a young receiver for the Giants. I have not seen that from Waddle at all really this season, and it makes me wonder if they've changed it up purposely that way to try and make some more freedom for Tyreek Hill around there. And open space.
No, I think what it is they've really done a great job this year of scheming to get the ball out of Tua's hands very quickly. Mm-hmm. And so they're not waiting on these deep crossing routes anymore for Waddle to get open. It's more of these shallow crossing routes to get for Tyreek to get open, or just to get him the ball, or you're throwing the go and get him ball front to Tyreek or to Waddle on the sideline. You know, we haven't seen Waddle win one-on-one down the field. That's been the more concerning thing for me. Is, you know,
I don't think he's been challenged enough down the field one-on-one. He's been winning the jump balls when it's you know, contested catch and one-on-ones, which is great. He's very good possession.
But what I'm saying is he's not winning the one-on-one on the go route to actually break off the big play. He's been making the catch and getting tackled immediately, and you see his production reflect that, where he's having these average depth of target being over 10 yards, but he's not having any yards after catch. His yards after catch is fairly low.
Yeah, you know what I will say, and I'll agree with you, is that the way they're getting the ball out of the hand quickly, it's making him go through his progressions a little faster too.
Right.
And there's been a couple times where Waddle is wide open in broken coverage, or has the corner beat with no safety over top because they're covered on Tyreek, and he's already moved on. Like, if he waits that little bit of, you know, fraction of a second, has it, and Tua is not doing that. He's getting rid of that ball quick, which is also why he's not taking as many hits back there either.
Right. Exactly. So I mean, the big guys on the Dolphins, go ahead and start them, especially in the running backs. I'm like, start Mostert and A-Chain. Like, Mostert, this is very similar to like David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Where like there's enough room in that backfield for both of them to be successful and both of them to have good games. And we saw even the biggest games from A-Chain that we've seen this year, and everyone's so excited to have him back. Like, let's not forget that those are the same games that ended up giving Raheem Mostert the number 2 running back spot this year.
Correct.
So but let's not just all of a sudden forget that he was just all of a sudden missing, and he only ran the ball 5 times for 15 yards. Like, he blew up in those games too.
And I don't see McDaniel, sorry for the ambulance, everybody. I don't see McDaniel being the type of coach to go with a bell cow approach. Like, he's going to mix it up. He's going to make, even though he's kind of doing it in the receiver game, he's going to mix it up. He's going to make these teams guess, and he's going to use speed. And speed's only good when they're fresh. And so I think he's going to be swapping around, and it's not a hot hand thing. They're going to be going back and forth between these two running backs. They're going to be a problem when they get around the outside.
Yeah, and then moving on, like the defense here on the Miami Dolphins, you're starting against the Raiders. They've gotten healthy on that defensive side, and this is a defense that has all the big playmakers to create turnovers, to create the big play, and to get after the quarterback. They might let up some points here or there, but who cares when you're getting after the quarterback the way they do, and have the potential for pick sixes or fumble returns for touchdowns, which this offense or this defense definitely does. And they're going to be playing with the lead in this game.
Yeah. Before we jump into the Raiders here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button so you get all the drops as we release them. We got shorts. We've got waiver wire advice. We've got Thursday Night Football preview.
We got ham. We got turkey.
We got greens, beans, potatoes, tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
So don't forget to hit those buttons, and leave a comment if you have a start sit advice. Leave a comment. I know it's the end of the trade deadline for most leagues. If you have trade advice that you need, and hey, when draft season comes around and you're looking for advice on drafts here, the more comments you leave, the more likes we get, the more stuff we're going to be able to get back to you quicker and concise. So moving on to the Raiders now.
The Raiders.
Aiden O'Connell is a sit. I'm still, these too many rookie quarterbacks out there. He is one of my more favorite ones that are out there because he's actually pretty decent. I think it's just he's working with a lot of interesting people and Will
Levis giving you a total of 5 points last week.
Hey, I won.
Yeah.
A win's a win, brother.
Yeah.
Dude, even the guy I was going to pick up ended up scoring 6 points, Minshew. So, it didn't matter who I played.
2 more points.
We're starting Josh Jacobs. He's looking he's getting back into that form again. I think they're going to lean on him a lot. You're starting
to The rust is off for him.
Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. We have a caution for Jacoby, but I'd even put a caution on Devontae Adams too. I think the two of them are Devontae's going to get the actual volume there in terms of compared to Myers, but I just don't know how much this passing offense is going to be that successful. It really
I think they're going to be keen on Josh Jacobs, and the reason I like Devontae Adams is because they understand that if they're going to win games and if they're going to be competitive, this offense needs to go through 2 players, and that's Jacobs and Adams. And Myers, I put him as a caution only because we could see a heavy volume day from Devontae Adams. Yeah. And I really, really like as a sleeper this week, Michael Mayer. So if you're in need for a tight end, Mayer is a guy that we saw his touchdown last week against the Jets. I mean, he made big boy noise there. Just to go up and get him over the cornerback. He's a big body tight end, and he's being used more and more, especially that Aiden O'Connell has come in. So, and then the defense, don't bother against this offense.
Yeah,
just don't do it.
My thoughts too on the players you just mentioned. I said my piece about Adams. I like him. I think he's good. I just don't know if there's enough volume to go all the way around, which is why I'm not high on Michael Mayer. I think he's a fantastic tight end, but until they start throwing the ball 50 times a game to really give better targets to the tight end position, he's going to have 3 targets in a game with 1 or 2 catches. But again, when you do what you did in the end zone against the Jets, you're going to garner some targets in the red zone a little bit more often and get the trust of your quarterback. So not a bad option there. Let's move on to this next matchup, Cowboys, Panthers. This one is one that I'm not going to have on my quad screen, to be honest with you. I don't have anybody in the game.
No, I'm kidding.
Hey, it's not Arizona, right?
I'm kidding.
But
there ain't no legend of Josh Dobbs on this team.
Yeah, we're starting all the Cowboys here.
And we're sitting pretty much everyone else.
Everybody else. Yeah. So start them all. We have Brandon Cooks as a sleeper. I think you could probably still flex him this week as a wide receiver 2-3 because he's got the upside to finish as a low end wide receiver 1.
I'd really like to talk about Tony Pollard for a second.
Yeah, let's talk. Well, I was going to get to the running backs because I think that's the biggest portion of what we want to talk about. And I'll let you do that.
Listen,
I just want to say,
waste your time talking about CeeDee Lamb. You're going to start him. The guy's a freak.
Yeah, Lamb, Ferguson, Cowboys defense. You better be starting. And Dak Prescott's playing like an all-world quarterback right now. So you've got the floor, my man. Talk about these running backs.
Let's just talk. Let's get the elephant out. All right. Tony Pollard has stunk this year. And everyone that's taken him in the first round saying that he's going to be a top 5 running back, you are wrong. You're still wrong. And I'm going to shove it in your face. Okay. He's had 1 touchdown all season. And you know when that was? Week 1. Okay. He doesn't sustain volume. And the more the Cowboys start using Rico Dowdle, the more they realize they need a between the tackles runner. And that Pollard is a great complement to that. But he is not that. And they tried to use him as a between the tackles runner all season, and it's failed. And he's looked bad. He hasn't had explosive plays. He hasn't had the breakout. He's been halfway decent as a pass catcher. But this offense, especially in the games that they've struggled, this offense is not trying to throw up fantasy points. This offense is trying to get to the Super Bowl, and they're going to do that by running the football. And so the more that this season goes on, you've seen Rico Dowdle become a bigger figure in this offense, culminated in the last couple of weeks where he's really stepped onto the floor and being like, he's taking goal line touches away. He's taking regular first and second down touches away. And that's a huge thing to see. And that's the biggest caution for Pollard. Are you going to start him? Yeah, they're playing the Carolina Panthers. So start everyone. But this is a good week before we get into the fantasy playoffs. Is you better pump your brakes on Tony Pollard, especially if you have him this week. Try to trade him. Like, he's a trade off your team candidate just to go and get someone else. Like, I would trade him for Mixon. Like, I would want Mixon over him.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably want Gus Edwards over him at this point.
Yeah, I like, even though Mixon's going to be without his quarterback, I still like Mixon for sure. I'd go for Aaron Jones. I think that's another one that I like because he's all healthy now. I agree with you. I don't think, and I'm going to agree with you on pumping the brakes on Tony Pollard, but I'm also going to say temper your expectations with Rico Dowdle. I think this is not necessarily a full Tony Pollard problem. I think it's the Cowboys can't run the ball problem. I feel like they just aren't good at running the ball like they used to with that Zeke Pollard tandem. Their offensive line woes are coming to catch up to them. And to me, speed racer in the background here, to me, their offense is running through the air game, and it's running through Dak Prescott. It's finally running through Dak Prescott because to me, they were losing football games because of him before and trying to lean on this run game. I mean, Rico Dowdle last game had the 12 for 79, the 6.5 yards per carry. Before that, he was over, probably about four times. Three times he was four, and then a couple others. So it's not like he's blowing up every single time he's touched the ball. I think he's going to be decent. He's going to be better between the tackle than Tony Pollard. I just don't like when you start getting into these split carry backfield messes and one of these guys can get the touchdowns and not. I just think it's a problem with the Cowboys running the ball. And until they prove it, I mean, they've got 3 games in a row between Carolina, Washington, and Seattle where they can prove if they can run the ball or not before they have to face Philly and Miami and Detroit in the next 4 weeks after that. So
I stand corrected. Tony Pollard has 2 touchdowns this season, and they were both in week 1.
Yeah.
But he's only had one week the entire season where he's had over 100 yards rushing. He's had 3 weeks with over 10 or over 4 weeks of over double-digit points. That's just not like it's not where you drafted him. A lot of people drafted him in the first or second round, and this is not the production you looked to get out of Tony Pollard where you drafted him there. And this
Correct.
is why we said it's not that we didn't like him, but pump your brakes on him to where there's so many other guys I would like to over him.
This is why I liked Joe Mixon over him. I liked ETN over him. Some of these other guys.
Do you remember people like in the preseason just saying, "Oh, avoid Josh Jacobs and avoid Saquon Barkley, avoid Jonathan Taylor"? Those guys all have better seasons right now, or are closing the gap on Tony Pollard. Josh Jacobs is definitely doing that, and Jonathan Taylor missed 4 or 5 games and is closing the gap on him. So
yeah,
we can move on to the Panthers, who is just where you saw all green, you're going to see a lot of red here.
Thielen's the only one that we're given a check mark to, and I think that's mostly going to pay off at the end of the game when they're being blown out and they're still trying to move the ball down the field. He's going to get some catches. He's going to get his fantasy volume back there. This is going to be an ugly game, which is, again, is why it's not on my quad screen. We can skip over all the things here and talk about the Panthers in their next matchup next time when we can actually give you some feedback on what we think about their starts.
This is going to be a tough game for them. This is just going to be a tough game for them.
So let's move to the Bears-Lions. This is going to be an interesting matchup too, because the Lions are riding high, and the Bears have been in a tough situation, but going 2-2 without your starting quarterback isn't a bad thing. Their defense has actually really put the vice grips down on situations and been able to hold off some tougher offenses that you would think would just run all over them, and all of a sudden they don't run the ball or their big receivers are shut down. And I think This is going to be an interesting test for them against the high-powered Lions offense, but I think it's going to be a test for the Lions offense and the Lions defense against Justin Fields coming back here, regardless of rust or not, because DJ Moore and him, that tandem is difficult to shy away from.
Well, you've seen the numbers of DJ Moore with and without Justin Fields, so DJ Moore is definitely going to be a start. Now, I know on the screen we have listed that Herbert's a sit and Foreman's a start. Foreman was limited in practice this week, so if Foreman doesn't go, then I would flip-flop the two and sit Foreman, obviously, but start Herbert. And the reason that I'm saying sit Herbert and start Foreman is I think Foreman's going to get, if he does play, he's going to get the goal line touches. But with the three-headed backfield, and I said this last week and I did a short on it, that's saying, with Herbert coming back and Foreman playing the way he has, and then Roschon Johnson still being a factor, and then add Justin Fields as a runner coming on, there's just not enough rush volume to go around to make any one of these guys a really attractive option in terms of fantasy.
They're not winning games on the ground either. I mean, that's the biggest point. You're not winning games on the ground with this.
They're certainly not going to stay in this game against Detroit.
I
don't see this being a close game.
It's got the highest total right now, by the way.
Yeah. Well, that also could be like, well, Detroit's going to smack them around.
It could be that. But I mean, again, we've seen Justin Fields do it this season, and we've seen Justin Fields fall flat on his face this season. So which one are you getting? It's a flip of the coin at this point.
Listen, we saw a shootout last week with Detroit and the Chargers, but the Detroit was getting beat in the air, not on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying
Fields as a thrower.
Yeah. The guy, the games that he was.
I know you have him as your fantasy quarterback.
Well, I'm gonna let you talk about him because everybody who's not on your team is not good. So let's talk about that. But when we talk about exactly,
obviously.
So but Justin Fields, when you go look at the games that he actually was successful at a big game, it wasn't like last year where he ran the ball for 120 yards. He actually threw the ball for over 300 yards and had multi-touchdown games. Like that's where I could say is like, if they're going to win, it's going to be through the air. If they're going to win this season again, it's going to be through the air, and it's going to be because of Justin Fields. And we saw with Bagent. Bagent had some bad games because he threw the ball up and into interception opportunities. He threw the ball off of where he should be throwing to his receivers. He had opportunities where they could have done well through the air too as well, and he just had some off throws and made some mistakes. I think Fields is a different quarterback than him. I think should be a starter in the NFL, and I just hate, I said earlier about Kyler Murray, who knows where he'll be on a team. There's already talks about Justin Fields maybe being on another team too. So this is almost like this is his time to shine. This is his time to prove that he belongs and he should be a starter in the NFL. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy comes and balls out.
It makes a lot of sense from the NFL GM perspective. Blame the quarterback and the young quarterback, not the terrible offensive line that's in front of him, not the Swiss cheese defense that you put on the field.
And the offensive play call
problem that you're not winning games.
The guy you hired to be the play caller. Yeah, I agree.
You've gone through how many offensive coordinators with a young quarterback, but it's the quarterback's fault because he can't win games. Get real, guys.
I like Justin Fields this week. I have him as a top 10 quarterback this week at number 10. If I were to rank, but again, it's a risky play. He could finish at quarterback 20 pretty easily. We like Cole Kmet because they do have that rapport on the field. Darnell Mooney's a sit. I had him as a sleeper last week, and he was somewhat effective. He's been decent as of late, so I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see them connect. Because if you remember at the beginning of the season, some of those games Justin Fields dudded, they were just off by like a foot on some and 6 inches on some of those passes to Mooney on a deep pass that could have changed the whole scope of the game and the fantasy output. So I'm interested to see what the Bears got coming out here.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Lions because everybody else is, and everybody wants to have a piece of this offense here. You're starting everybody but Josh Reynolds. We proved sitting Josh Reynolds the past couple of weeks. You sit him. It is still the Chicago Bears defense. It is a situation where they can get up early and just put the foot on the throats of the Chicago Bears. But Goff is playing great football. Montgomery came out and he shows he's still got steam in that 75-yard run. Jahmyr Gibbs is playing the role that everybody wanted him to play as the 12th pick in the draft. Amon-Ra St. Brown is fantastic wide receiver in the NFL. I've watched more and more of him lately, and just I'm completely sold on this guy. I would take him in a top 10 pick next year easily. And then Laporta, good rookie, holding his own on this offense. And we're starting the Detroit Lions here. I think this is one where they can stop the run. And if it sucks, though, if you get one of those Justin Fields big games there. But if you don't, it's going to be a good day for Lions defensive owners.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still think it's going to be a good day. They're going to get after him. Justin Fields does get sacked a lot, so even if he does end up and he fumbles, so even if he does end up having a good game himself, sack points don't, sack yardage doesn't count against the quarterback as rushing yards. They do get points for a defense, so still go ahead and start them, even if Justin Fields does have a good game. There might be a lot of scramble drill in here. I don't see this going well for the Bears. I know you might have a difference of opinion. I don't necessarily see it. And then, with the Lions, they have a really strong rushing attack to where they can really control the game. So they're not going to get into a shootout with the team. Not 2 weeks in a row.
Let me see though. I wouldn't be surprised because that's just been their weakness all year. Like they've just haven't been able to handle. They've been doing such a good job at the rush. They just haven't been able to handle ball through the air that often.
They handled Patrick Mahomes week 1.
Yeah, but since then, Pat Mahomes has been handled by plenty of people this season. So, if you look at quarterbacks, versus the Lions, if we're going to talk about it real quick here, really when it comes down to it, you've had in the past 3 weeks, you've had 2 quarterbacks go for over 30 points in fantasy. You had the Raiders quarterbacks absolutely suck, but you had Lamar and Herbert do well against them. You had another dud from the Buccaneers in Baker Mayfield, but then you had 23 points from Bryce Young against them. So they're susceptible. They're not imperfect, but they're good. They're still a good defense here.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Chargers, Packers. Chargers reeling off another tough last-minute loss as they are so good at doing.
They lost in the most Charger way possible, right?
Yep. They have a chance here against a Packer team that's been struggling as of late offensively to have identity, but are starting to figure it out a little bit more with Aaron Jones coming back. You're still starting Herbert, Eckler, Keenan Allen. Quentin Johnson is sit. He had some bad drops last game. I want to see more from him, and I'm sure you got to feel the same. And that's why Jalen Guyton was kind of the benefactor of the touchdown. We have Donald Parham as a start here as well. He's a good streaming option at the tight end position because when they get in the red zone, if they can't punch it in with Austin Eckler, Parham seems to always be open in the end zone. And like the majority of look at the percentage of touchdown passes to actual receptions for touchdown receptions. It's crazy.
Yeah, his touchdown rate is awesome.
And then this Chargers defense, I think, is going to put some good pressure. I think they're going to need to win a game here and to put some pressure on this Packers offense.
Yeah, no, I like that this was kind of one decision that I had that I was like, yeah, I don't know if I really like him as a start in this game, but then I was like, I really feel they're going to get after the quarterback. I feel like they're going to create turnovers. Like, that's the thing with them. Like, they create turnovers and they get after the quarterback, but they also just give up a ton of points.
Well, they're full send offense. They full send to the quarterback. They full send with Derwin James. It's tough. I think you see that when you have defenses that run a defense like they do with Derwin James, where he floats around and plays multiple positions. It can confuse. Like, he's good at doing it, but his counterparts next to him have opportunities to have misreads and not go with their man instead when he comes up to play the linebacker position. That's what I've seen, and I think once they start fitting that together, they're dangerous. But here I got a question for you. Keenan Allen says he's going to go. If he doesn't go or he's limited, which guy do you like here being the benefactor of all those targets?
Guyton, I like even more. And then I would say Quentin Johnson is another guy. Obviously, some of those targets are going to go to Eckler. Some of those targets are going to go to Everett if Everett goes. But yeah, you have to say that it's going to be Guyton.
Yeah.
I don't think that I don't think Herbert trusts Quentin Johnson. I know he got the touchdown last week. but you're right. He's had a lot of drop balls. He's having a tough time separating.
I think that's
He's
what it
having a
is.
tough time. Yeah, and so I'm not sure he's going to be getting volume in the passing game if he can't separate from normal routes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I agree. I think Eckler and Guyton are probably the biggest benefactors there. So
No.
I think even if Keenan Allen goes, it's not going to be in full fashion. I think he'll probably end up playing 60% of the snaps.
Yep.
And if they get up early, I guarantee you he's sitting on the sideline.
Yeah.
So let's go to the Packers here, who, like I said, are struggling in the offensive side of the ball. We've talked about it ad nauseum about why. And to me, it is strictly because they have a Christian Watson problem. They're trying to play him like he's Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, and the guy is not a multi-trick pony. The guy's got one trick. He's got some speed, and he gets open. He's dropped
He's
balls.
got one trick. It's having Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, and you're only good in 4 of those games anyway.
Yeah. So I think if this team works on spreading the ball around, which is why we have Romeo Doubs as a start, this guy can't seem to not find the end zone. Jordan Love loves him when it's in the actual end zone portion of the red zone. I think Jordan Love here has an opportunity to have a good game just based off of what we saw Goff and that offensive do. But I don't want to say he's a start right away just because you look at those fantasy numbers. Because let's not forget, it wasn't just Goff that put up all those points last week. It was also the running game there. Like, a lot of stuff has to work for the Packers for it to be a decent game for Jordan Love. He is still, I think, quarterback 13 on the season. So he's not a terrible fantasy quarterback. He's had some duds and he's had some consistency in the 20-point range. With Aaron Jones back, I think it's going to help. You're sitting Dillon, sitting Watson until we see anything we like from him. Start Dobbs. Sit Musgrave, even though he finally had his first touchdown last week, and he's a pretty decent option. The tight ends seem to struggle a little bit against the Chargers. And then we're not even going to play this Packers defense, even though they've shut down some receivers here and there. They still are terrible against the run and other positions. So I just don't, I don't know what to think of this game here. I think it could be, the thing is, you should say on paper, the Chargers should take this with a landslide, and then they're going to find a way to keep this game close and low scoring and then lose.
Yeah, probably. Like Jordan Love, listen, he can come out and ball out against this defense because, like you said, they allowed a lot of big plays, and they played really well against the Steelers last week, in a game where they were close. Steelers found a way to win that game, but yeah, I can easily see Jordan Love end up being a start for the week, especially because. Dobbs is playing really well. I think Jaden Reed is coming on and playing really well, and I like Luke Musgrave playing well. I don't like him enough. I think he ends up having like 50 yards, so he has a halfway decent game, but that's not good enough for me to say go ahead and start him. On paper, you're right. Like, the Chargers should win this game on paper, but this is the NFL.
Yeah. Well, here's my question to you. We have Jordan Love as a sit, and I get why, because he has been a little bit of a coin flip as of recent. Well, which coin flip do you like more? Do you have more trust in Jordan Love winning you a week in fantasy versus Justin Fields? Which one?
How badly do I need to win?
You can just start one. You're both
am I swinging for the fence? Like, am I just being like, I need like, there's a lot of factors in that. If like there
should be a lot of factors. We know one's got a higher ceiling than the other one, but that's what I'm asking you is, like, which one do you have more confidence throwing as your starter this week?
Jordan Love.
Okay.
I think he's a better matchup. I think he has healthier weapons.
I think that's what people need to hear is like what your thoughts. I'm on the other side of the boat with Fields. Obviously, I'm starting him. I almost picked up Love and decided to start Love, but I'm like,
you look at Love too. His rushing totals have been pretty good too. So you're getting an extra 3 or 4 points just by rushing totals. It's not like he's standing back and being a pocket passer. Like, he's having 15-yard runs. He's running for 30 to 40 yards a game. Like, I'll take that. The problem is he's not throwing touchdowns. But on the flip side, neither was Justin Fields, really. He's had 2 good weeks before the injury. We don't know what his thumb is going to be like. We don't know how much they're going to throw the ball with him. And you're getting Khalil Herbert back. So who knows what they're going to, how they're going to attack Detroit.
Yep. All right, well, let's move on from this Packers-Chargers lineup. Let's go to the Giants-Commanders. Not that it's something that we really want to talk about either. You start same as last week, same as the week before. You're starting Saquon Barkley. That's about it. I mean,
Said everyone else.
I just think this offense, this team is going to make a mockery of themselves again when it comes to the NFL draft time, because they're going to probably have the number 1 overall NFL pick and not know what they're going to do with it. They put themselves in a terrible situation signing Daniel Jones to that big contract instead of franchise tagging him and just paying extra money to the franchise tag. They're going to run Saquon Barkley out of town. He's already said it's a loyalty. It means nothing in this place. So he's gone next year. And then you're going to go draft Caleb Williams. And all of a sudden he's going to have no one to block for him. And he's just going to get his career destroyed. So
and no one to catch passes from him.
Nope. Love being a Giants fan. So let's move on to the Commanders here, who we expect to win, which is why you see a lot of green. Gibson is a sit because he is doubtful to play. Everybody else is a start here. Even though the Giants have been decent against tight ends, Logan Thomas still could be a sleeper because it could be just a volume-based thing. They're just going to be throwing the ball all over the place. Especially, I will say, Bobby Okereke showed up on the injury report. So if he's a no-go, then Logan Thomas gets upgraded a little bit because Okereke is a fantastic linebacker in the NFL, and he's the reason why tight ends have been taken away because he can cover them.
This is one of those matchups on the fantasy lineup that you love to see. If it says your guy is playing NYG, fire him up because it's great.
Sam Howell could throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns this game. But we've seen the Giants do weirder things, and all of a sudden the defense shows up and shuts down an entire offense, and they lose by a field goal.
Like what?
Against
like
the Jets.
What? Tommy DeVito having as many rushing touchdowns this season as Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I know. Well, there's nothing much else to talk.
Let's go on to the other New York team that's garbage.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's move on to the Jets-Bills. So the Bills here, we have a caution next to Stephon Diggs. I'll let Chris talk about that in a second, but you're starting Josh Allen. Even when he's struggling, the guy can still put up 20 points easily because of his rushing ability and his athleticism and his arm. He has chunk yardage arm, so I like it there. James Cook looked great after that fumble. Imagine what he would have done if he wasn't put in the doghouse last week. He's facing another defense that is weaker against the run versus the pass, so they may try and establish the run a little bit more here. You like Dalton Kincaid. And you like this defense against the Jets because as long as Aaron Rodgers is not at the helm, you can still have Zach Wilson kind of kept in a cage. I wouldn't say make mistakes because he's done a very good job of not making mistakes, but you keep him in a little bit of a cage and you can't unleash him.
The
like
offense alone is just not moving the ball downfield, so you're not going to give up a ton of points to them. Let's talk about the reason I have Stephon Diggs as a caution. I know in the first week he just absolutely went off, had 10 receptions, 106 yards, and had a touchdown. In a lot of that game, they matched up. They rotated him around and didn't have a matchup against Sauce. They're going to have to put him into the slot, I think, this game to not have him match up against Sauce. I think he's going to, this is one of those games where Sauce definitely doesn't travel. He's probably going to be traveling in this game and take that matchup. We saw a little bit of it against Devontae Adams in the Vegas game. I think you may get it in this game. And the other reason why he's a caution is Josh Allen struggled. He has really, really struggled with his accuracy, with his decision-making, with keeping that offense on the field. And when he starts to panic, the recipient has been Dalton Kincaid. Mm-hmm. And you saw at the end of the game last week where who were they going to? They weren't throwing the ball to Diggs. Like, Diggs wasn't getting hyper-targeted. Like, Diggs in the last 3 weeks has looked very pedestrian. So,
yeah, and I agree with you. Josh Allen, I think it's been less of an accuracy thing when watching him play, and it's more of his decision-making. Like, he's holding the ball too long and trying to fit into a window that he should have hit a little bit earlier. He's trying to throw a dart pass too hard into a window, and it's bouncing off of Gabe Davis's hands. Should have been caught still. And then that last interception towards the end of the game, the guy was not, like, that was, the progression was red. The guy he threw it to the defender. The guy wasn't open. It was a bad decision. And I think his decision-making is getting to him, and he's definitely somebody who probably gets a little hot-headed. You could see his emotions when he's on the field there, and I think it's getting to him.
He's got the yips.
And I don't think it's the offensive coordinator. I think they felt like something needed to be a change. be changed here. But yeah, I mean, when you're making mistakes, it's like making an error in the baseball field. Like when it happens, you could make one after another because
Yips.
the yips. It's just, it happens.
The
Same
yips.
thing. So I think it's that too.
Yeah,
but
and then moving on to the Jets. It's the same as every week, right? You're starting Garrett Wilson, even though he has he's limited in practice this week with the elbow. He's going to play. He came out today and said he's going to play. Breece Hall, you're going to start. Although I would say Breece Hall is a little bit of a caution as well, just because two things. The Buffalo defense has been fairly good against the run.
Not that great.
Fairly good, but Dalvin Cook's been a lot more involved the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I did notice that.
So I pumped the brakes on him. And the thing with Breece too is all of his production and all the games that he's been really good this year, he's had a long touchdown. He's had to have the long touchdown. And do we think that that's going to happen? It happened week 1 where he had a long broken run and then he just couldn't finish it. But do we see it happening?
I mean, it kind of reminds me of Breece Hall last year, though, too. I mean, like you go back and look at it on the microscope about his big playability. It helps. I mean, that's the same thing you could argue about Saquon here. It's a little bit different than some of these other running backs in the league, But to me, Breece Hall, if you look at what Javonte did this past game, if they can get Breece Hall going like the Broncos did on last was it Monday night with Javonte, like you are going to have success at the run game. And I think they can do that because I think Breece Hall is good enough to do that.
Yeah, no, I also think that they've taken a lot of early down penalties on this offense, which has pushed them behind in the sticks and taken them out of running, positive running situations. So there's a lot I don't like about, there's a lot of reasons I would have a caution on Breece Hall, but it's opportunity, and that's what it comes down to. You're going to start the Jets defense, and I like Tyler Conklin as a sleeper this week. He's had some great games. I think that he is in line. I don't think he's going to absolutely blow up, but I think he can be in line for a touchdown, 70 yards in this game.
Mm-hmm. I think people forget about him out there with all these other guys running around.
Yeah.
Now, this is the one thing I will say about this game here is I'm going to be glued to it because, man, oh man, would I love to watch a Jets team sweep the series against Buffalo this year, potentially kick them out of the playoffs because of it. Most likely kick them out of the playoffs.
Second place.
And so I think this is a huge game. And you know what? The Jets have nothing to lose. That's the best part of it. And it's scary to play against a New York football team that has nothing to lose because anything can happen out there.
This defense is scratching and clawing for 4 more weeks. So potentially, I don't think this is going to happen. But if Vegas upsets Miami and the Jets beat Buffalo, the Jets are playing, I believe, for first place. If they beat Miami next week, the week after, they're playing for first place.
Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing I will say, and I say
it's gonna happen.
But when you have a New York team that has nothing to lose, they're dangerous. Everybody's like, well, New York Giants have nothing to lose. No, they do. They can lose the first round pick if they win a football game. So that's something to lose. The Jets have nothing to lose. They are playing.
They should get that first pick and then trade out because they have so many holes to fill.
I know. Exactly. Let's move on. We got Buccaneers 49ers. We got to finish up here because I know Chris has to go. So Chris, if you do have to go at any point, let us know and I'll finish up here. But let's talk about the Buccaneers and the 49ers. The Buccaneers have been sneakily with Baker Mayfield at the helm. It's like almost like it's no different than what Tom Brady was last year. They just threw for more yardage last year. So Baker is a sit though. Rashad White's a sit. Sean Tucker's a sit. Any of the backup running backs. Really, you're playing Godwin and Evans. And you may wonder, well, if you have Godwin and Evans as starts and K. Dotton as a sleeper, why not Baker Mayfield as a starter? Well, I think the 49ers defense, they are susceptible to the pass here and there, but I think they're going to be all over Baker Mayfield. And I think Evans can have 50 and a touchdown, and Godwin could have 70 and a bunch of catches and be a good PPR play. That's still going to make him worthy of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 starts.
You can put me in the I can argue for Baker being a start this week. The last 3 weeks he's been quarterback 10, quarterback 7, quarterback 10. He's had really good games. He's been consistent this whole year. This is completely opposite of what I thought he was going to be this season. That being said, they're playing the San Francisco team that can absolutely just shut down teams. I mean, look what they did last week to Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
And do we like this team better? Do we like Tampa Bay better than we'd like Jacksonville? I don't think so. So I think this can be a struggle. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, I think that they can find the end zone. One of them finds yards. One of them finds the end zone. Kate Otten, just because I think that this matchup against San Francisco is a fairly decent one. So,
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing I will say. There's been 2 quarterbacks to score over 20 points against them. Only 2, and it's happened 3 times. Josh Dobbs with Arizona. Josh Dobbs. Was it Josh Dobbs with the Vikings? No, it wasn't. Because Josh Dobbs' first game with the Vikings was
Atlanta.
Atlanta. So it was Josh Dobbs with the Cardinals. You had the Vikings and the Bengals put up points against them, 25, and then Joe Burrow 33. But they shut the door on Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars last week. And what was the biggest difference? They had a full game with Chase Young and Nick Bosa rushing the quarterback, and it makes a difference. It takes pressure off of those great linebackers out that they have there. So I don't know. I think it's going to be tough. I agree. You can make an argument for him to be a start, but I think it's going to be one of his tougher ones that he's had as of recent too.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the
Niners.
The 49ers portion of this matchup. And you like what you see with Purdy, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle. We have Debo as a sit and Mitchell as a sit. Obviously Mitchell, but Debo. The one thing you got to think about Debo here is it's a volume thing for Kittle, for Debo, and Ayuk right now because they're running the ball so much with Christian McCaffrey. They're not throwing the ball a ton, and when you're not throwing the ball a ton, those guys are going to lose targets. And to me, when I looked at Debo Samuel last week, if he didn't run that one ball in, he would have been lost in this game completely. Like he literally had 4 catches.
Literally everyone on this offense except for McCaffrey score last week. Juszczyk, Kittle, Ayuk,
correct.
Debo.
So it can happen.
Yeah.
But we wanted McCaffrey to score too. That they should not have thrown that touchdown to Juszczyk. They should have just ran the ball 100 times.
You gotta love the Juszczyk.
I do too. Touchdown. But what I'm saying is he had 4 catches on 4 targets for 30 yards. Short again, because you have Ayuk and you have Kittle going more downfield, he's short yardage guy. He had 3 rushes for 29 and one happened to be a little bit longer. I think it was like a 14 or 16 yarder for the touchdown. Like that's what you got to hope if you're starting Debo Samuel. Yeah. That's why he's a sit to me. Ayuk is more traditional. Yeah, Ayuk also only had about 40 or 50 yards in the touchdown. Kittle had the 100 and something on that broken coverage. But again, he doesn't break. If that coverage isn't broken, he's on low yardage for the for the day too. So too many mouths to feed here. They are successful through the air and on the ground. I just like McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Kittle a little bit more than Debo.
Yeah.
If Debo didn't run that damn ball in, McCaffrey would have the record. So
they didn't.
Thanks, Shanahan. Seahawks Rams. Another divisional matchup here. We're starting Geno, starting Walker, sitting Charbonnet, starting Metcalf, Lockett, and JSN as a sleeper.
So Lockett is questionable. This one.
Yeah, Lockett I saw that with the hamstring.
Right, and so if Lockett doesn't go, or if he's going to be limited, I like JSN as a start. Mm-hmm. I like DK. His volume's been absolutely crazy all year. It just hasn't led to production. Geno, I think he's going to have a bounce back game. These are games that he's the Rams have been either really, really good defensively or really, really bad defensively. So I think that this might be a game where he's able to take advantage of that. Kenneth Walker, we saw last week, having a 64-yard touchdown run, what he's able to do, and all he needs is a little bit of crease. The Rams have been very middle of the pack, both pass and run. So so I do like the guys and this matchup against them. I think this is a game that could go back and forth a little bit. I don't think it's going to completely shoot out, but I do think that this could be a back and forth game where the defenses struggle or they bend but don't break. They'll give up yards and the offenses aren't good enough to score in the red zone too. So we might have a lot of field goals in this, but these defenses can give up yardage. So I think that those are the guys you want to start. I don't think Charbonnet is getting enough work, and the big thing to keep your eye on is if Lockett. Any reports come out on Saturday that's saying Lockett is not going to go. Start up JSN.
Yeah, and the one thing about this Rams defense, in the past 4 weeks, they've only had one guy score over 15 points, and it happened to be Dak Prescott, and it was 35 points. It was a big game. But besides that, they kept Steelers to 15, so Kenny Pickett to 15. They kept, I don't know if it was Dobbs or if it was it. Oh no, was it Dobbs or Toon that played against him when they got 9? He had 9 points. And then last week, Jordan Love had 15. And the thing about Geno Smith is Geno Smith and Jordan Love are kind of like been the same guy this whole season. They've been like throwing football around, not scoring touchdowns through the air, relying on running backs getting in there and, throwing up a gem here and there. To me, it could be a good game. It also could be one where the Rams decide they're going to just stuff it. So let's talk about the Rams here because we do like this offense against the Seahawks with Stafford. We got Henderson as a start here. Freeman could be an interesting start too as well. I think they could be a decent tandem. Cooper Kupp is a start. Tutu Atwell's a sit. Puka's a start. You really only like those two guys there. We haven't sped Higbee's name since the first couple weeks of the season. As Chris was talking about, they could shoot out a little bit. I don't like this Rams defense. They've had some good games and they've had some bad games, and it's not one that I'm worth streaming them against. Yeah,
exactly.
So, let's see. Talk about it next. We got Broncos Vikings. This is going to be an exciting game here. You got a Broncos team that is winning football games in close fashion, the opposite of the Chargers. You have Russell Wilson, who, even though he's not throwing for 200 yards, is somehow getting himself to 20 points because he's using his legs again. So it's reminiscent of his time in Seattle. Javonte Williams is getting the ball plenty, and he's running the ball hard. You got McLaughlin and Judy as sits, especially because Judy popped up on the injury report too. So keep an eye on that. Cortland Sutton is his favorite target, and it's probably the most trustworthy guy. If you didn't see that catch by Cortland Sutton on Monday night, it's the catch of the year. The way he kept his feet in was unbelievable.
The throw was crazy too. It's
the spin around, the whole thing. Yeah.
Classic Russell Wilson just dropping in the bucket, right?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Great touchdown pass.
Marvin Mims is a sit, even though he's getting more snap percentage. He is also dealing with a knee here. The Broncos defense I do like a lot. But I have to say, Dobbs is the Pastronaut has been pretty darn good. So what he can do with his legs, it's going to be interesting. They did hold this Bills defense or offense in terms of plays, which I think are a little bit more potent than the Vikings. However, they scored 22 points, but they held everybody in check here and there. It still wasn't like a giant output on the defensive side for fantasy. So I like them, but not enough that I'm saying they're a definite start. If you have to stream them because you don't like the other matchup that you're seeing, do you go with here's a question: Kansas City Chiefs, Denver Broncos. Who would you go? Great defense, tough matchup. Decent defense in not a great matchup, but not a tough one.
Do I have to drop one of them?
No. You're picking which one you want to start.
Broncos.
Yeah, I'd probably go Broncos too. There's options out there where I would start them over, but again, it's not my favorite play.
Yeah. And then on the other side of the ball, it's start away, right? If JJ goes, the big question is with the two players that if Madison gets cleared and is playing, and then is Justin Jefferson coming back this week? They might hold on to Jefferson another week and have him come back in week 12. But you're starting Dobbs. He's been playing great. If Madison goes, you're going to start him. if Madison goes, I still think that Ty Chandler is a sleeper.
I think he's his flex play at that play. And then if he doesn't, it's
Madison
an RB2.
Doesn't go, then he's a starter.
Yeah.
Addison, go ahead and start him up. You're sitting KJ Osborne and TJ Hawkinson. You're going to start. And I actually really like this defense. They've been playing well too. Like the same way you're saying that the Broncos have been playing well. This is a defense that have been playing really well as well. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have nothing more to add there. Just like Chris says, cautionary on the Jefferson and Madison. Take a look at your lineups on Sunday morning to see if they are active or not. In terms of this final matchup, Eagles-Chiefs on Monday night, a replay of the Super Bowl. I like Jalen Hurts and DeAndre Swift here. This is a good Chiefs defense, so I wouldn't be surprised if DeAndre Swift has low output, but this team is just very good in the offensive line that they can make things happen and he can get in the end zone. You got to play the two receivers here. That's, tight end wise, Goddard's still not back, and I don't like any of the replacements. And then the Eagles defense is a sit here because to me, I think Pat Mahomes and this offense is going to find a way to get done through the air the way they do best because the Eagles can stop the run, but they can't really stop the pass that well. And when you've got Travis Kelce, you've got some other young guys that are doing MVS could fly around back there. Rashee Rice has been playing great, and then you can still get Jerick McKinnon out the backfield. And this is right around that time where Jerick McKinnon started to get that head of steam going into the playoffs.
I mean, you're going to start the normal Eagles, right? Like, and it's the same thing. You're going to start on the other side. You're going to start your normal Chiefs. Like, this is a Super Bowl matchup where like anything can happen. But you're not starting Gainwell in this game. You're not going to start Rashad Penny. Like, you're not going to start Quez Watkins in this game. You're going to start the big guys. And on the other side, I think this is a caution for Pacheco. You're starting Mahomes because they have been just shredded through the air. Pacheco, they've been really, really dominant against the running attack this year. So Pacheco, even though he's a hard runner, I think he is more vulnerable to getting stopped. I've had McKinnon as a sleeper or a start a couple times this season. I just don't trust his volume enough. And I think that if they're going to get it done, it's going to be through, the receiving position and then Travis Kelce. And then you might be asking, well, if they're going to throw for all these yards, then why don't you start more receivers? It's because outside of Rashee Rice, there's been no one consistent on this receiving core. And so who do you really think is going to have a big game? Like Tony could easily do something and show up this season. MVS can go deep. So that's, and then this defense I'm going to sit too, because I think the Eagles are going to get after it as well. They're pissed off from losing the Super Bowl.
I mean, the McKinnon one, I agree. I've had him as a sleeper in my thought process the whole way, and he had the touchdown last week, and we know he can do that. But until we see some consistency with that, like we did at the tail end of last year, he's not worth risking a flex. There's other people out there that are going to have more opportunity, even though we know Pat Mahomes likes him in the red zone.
Yep.
So, well, that's all for our starts and sits and sleepers for the week. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave a comment. Let us know. Hit that notification bell so you see all of our waiver that come up from the game over here, as well as all of the updates and that we drop for our shorts throughout the week as well. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.